Today we've ventured along to the Pokestown Mall this time. I'm going to speak to Jim from the Jolly Vintner 2 for some suggestions for drinks for, say, Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, or even some big family celebration. Okay.
My name's Jim Dawson. I'm the owner of the Jolly Vintner 2 wine shop. I've been running the Jolly Vintner 2 wine shop for over 12 years, but I've been in the wine trade for over 40.
Jim, thanks for the introduction. I know before you used to be further down the road. Can you give us a bit more history to, the things you've done in the past and the change of position?
Certainly, yes. Well, previously I was down at Iford Bridge for 6 years, just over 6 years, but my landlord here is a good customer and a friend, and he made me an offer I couldn't refuse to move because the other landlord, based in London, just kept putting the rents up. Didn't really care as long as he was getting his money. So, it's a slightly smaller unit, but I felt moving here, it was a better location as well. And so that's why I made the move. But historically, as I say, I joined Oddbins in 1978 when they were a good company, when they were 30 shops strong. So I started fairly near the beginning. After 12 years, I'd gone through the ranks of sales assistant, assistant manager, manager, then area manager, then into the marketing department. And then we parted our ways when the shops were about 170 strong. I then had a restaurant for 3.5 years, which I opened in Wimbledon in '94. So hopefully I can match food and wine. But I came back to my first love, which is wine and all the ancillary products, spirits, etc. I've personally tasted or drunk everything that I sell, not all at one time. But to that end, I go to maybe half a dozen, 8 major tastings a year, which gives me the opportunity to try the portfolio of my major suppliers, where most I've tasted a day is 400, 450 wines.
Wow.
At which point my head hurts, my palate's shot, and I need a pint of beer. But my average is about 200. The fact that I end up beside the champagne table before catching the train home has got nothing whatsoever to do for my love of champagne.
So your shops have been sited in Iford and also here in Pokestown. So
Yes.
what draws you to doing business in this area, in Pokestown?
Well, I think it's got the demographics that I'm looking for, the old-fashioned ABC ones. I don't know what they're called now, I can't remember. They've split that demographics into sort of much smaller groupings now, haven't they? Plus I feel it's got the ancillary businesses that, up until the loss of the post office, certainly drew customers to this area, and hopefully, I'm a draw as well.
What do you think needs to happen from a business perspective for it to thrive even better here?
Greater variety of shops. Obviously, landlords that are prepared to reduce their rents to get people in the shops rather than leaving them empty. And that's not just here, that's nationwide. You just have to walk down any high street or any secondary or third or tertiary parade and you'll see empty units. And the landlords have said to themselves, I want a 7 or a 9% return, so that's the rent I want. And rather than have a tenant paying some rent, they'll leave them empty. And that's just nuts. And there's no incentives. I think that's the other problem for landlords to reduce rents.
Jim, we all like a bit of fizz. Who doesn't? And I just want some recommendations on maybe something to start the day that's good for a Bucks Fizz, something good value, let's say, and then something for the main event. And if you really wanted to push the boat out, your recommendation.
Absolutely, and this is where I always start my Christmas goodies tasting. And the catch line on that is something to get you through from waking up in the morning to going to bed at night. So on wake up, you could maybe have something like a Prosecco. This Di Bertol Prosecco at $10.50. It's at the bargain end of the fizz market, but it's better, I feel, than the run-of-the-mill supermarket ones. It's got a lovely sort of slightly off-dry, lots of fruit, good flavour, and if you want to wake up with a Bucks Fizz, ideal. Those of you who are fed up with Prosecco, and there's a lot of you out there, then move on to something like the Cremant d'Alsace. Cremant is semi-sparkling, it's not fully sparkling like a champagne, but it's made in the same way with the grapes of Alsace, so Pinot Gris and some Riesling in there, and it's just much softer. It's got that stone fruit flavours of sort of peaches and apricots, maybe a touch of nectarines, and it's just got a little bit more about it. If you just wanted something a little bit special at £13, it moves it on a bit. my own personal choice for waking up in the morning to go with my scrambled eggs and smoked salmon is a bottle of fizz, a proper bottle of champagne. The Lallier champagne at £30 is just fantastic stuff. They actually hold on to it and release it when it's got 2 to 3 years bottle age, and for non-vintage champagne that makes all the difference. They're based in the same village as Bollinger, the village of Eye, and I don't know if you know about the champagne rating of vineyards from 100% down to 70. Bollinger, their average rating of vineyards that they use the grapes from is 84%. These guys only use 100% rated vineyards, Grand Cru vineyards. And the champagne's got that lovely, rich, biscuity touch, a little bit of yeastiness in there, and a great aftertaste. And it's the longer the aftertaste, the better the quality of the wine. So for £30, it's not going to break the bank, but it's going to give you a real start to the day, or if you want to open your meal with a good aperitif, then Lallier champagne.
So moving on to say a fish course or a light starter, or maybe even if people are having a main course of turkey, chicken or pork, what white wines would you recommend?
Well, I've got 3 in front of me, and the first one is the Valençay Sauvignon Blanc from Loire. Again, I've got a little bit fed up of New Zealand Marlborough Sauvignons. The trick that the growers there is they hold on to what's called residual sugar. They don't fully ferment them out. So everybody thinks they're drinking a dry wine, but actually it's slightly off dry. That's why you get that ripe sweet fruit at the back of the palate. This is just clean and fresh. That's got that lovely grassy green vegetation, a little bit of gooseberryness there. Ideal for a fish course or a light starter, or if you wanted it to go against turkey. If you're not a red wine drinker, it will happily cope with that. Moving on from there, I've got something with a little bit more age. This 2013 Circle of Life from South Africa at £15. What a stunning wine. It's a real mix of Sauvignon Blanc, Chenin Blanc, a little touch of Chardonnay, about 4%, and 3% Semillon. It's what the winemaker feels every year. He's got the ripest grapes in his vineyard. He makes the blend and then lets it mature. So at 2013 it's showing that really ripe, rich texture that you get from Chenin Blanc, slightly honeyed fruit, and I feel it's got enough body to cope with if you're having goose rather than turkey, or maybe duck. It will cope with that, or a bit of pork. If you don't want a red wine, it will go with your pork. This will go happily with it. And moving upwards from there, I've got a Hawke's Bay Chardonnay. I know we've got the ABC clubs, anything but Chardonnay, but this is just top quality Chardonnay. If we were in Burgundy, we'd be paying £50 or £60 for the quality that this wine has. And at £24, it has that rich, buttery texture, a little hint of oak and vanilla, and enough depth of flavour to cope with not just any meats that you put up, even some of the red meats if you're having red meats, but it will happily go into the cheese course as well and give you enough refreshment after each mouthful.
Okay, now moving on to the main course of say beef or duck and so on. What would you recommend in terms of a red to match that?
Well, I've got 3 in front of me. Excuse me. The first one is this organic Rioja, the Ontanon Rioja at £10. Ironically, I've got something like 270 or 280 wines on the shelf that are both organic and vegan, because it's a very growing edge of the market. But this is unlike a lot of Riojas. It's light, it's fresh, it's got lots of fruit, nice sort of blackberry and red berry fruit, very soft, very easy drinking, and I've put it on this year instead of either a Pinot Noir or a Beaujolais. I think it fits that bill, goes perfectly well with almost any red meats. If you don't want a heavy red, if you want something a little bit lighter that's going to leave you not feeling oomph at the end of it, this is the one to have. Moving on from that, I've got an organic Malbec from Argentina. The explosion in Argentinian wines in the last sort of 5 or 6 years has been phenomenal, driven by Malbec, and this is organic as well at the same time from Bianchi at £16. Just lovely, big, ripe blackberry flavours, lots of body, lots of fruit and flavour, and it's going to stand up against if you have a roast lamb or if you have roast beef. It's going to cope with that fabulously well. The far end of the range, I've got this Basses, this Fincas Casilla Herrera from Castilla y Leon in sort of central Spain. 2014, but it's a strange mix, a mix of Bobal, the local grape, Merlot, Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot and Syrah. Tasted it last February at a tasting. As soon as I smelt it, I thought, wow. I don't even have to taste it to know it's fantastic stuff. It's £27, it's not cheap, but boy, you're going to be coming back for more, because everybody I've sold this to has come back and said, I want some more. In fact, the rep for the company that I buy it from can't believe how much of this I sell. And it's just one of those wines that you can sit and savour, go happily with any red meats, or the cheese at the end of the meal, or even if you just want to drink on its own and just take your time and enjoy the flavours.
So now, after the main course, we're moving on to the cheese course or dessert course and so on. So what recommendations do you have for us today?
Well, I've got a sweet wine, I've got a port, and I've also got an amaretto. So the sweet wine first. This is the Côte de Lion from the Loire Valley, Chenin Blanc grape, and the Chenin Blanc, even when it makes a dry wine, always says to me, if it's good quality, I want to be sweet. So getting it to leave it on the vine that little bit longer, so it over ripens, maybe shrivels into almost raisin-like before it's picked. And this is the Premier Cru Saint-Aubin. Last year I showed the Côte de Lion Chaume, which is a little bit fuller bodied, it's a little bit lighter and fresher, but it has that lovely honey, lemon touch, maybe a hint of marmalade in there, but with enough acidity to lift the palate in between each dessert that you're having, or even with cheese. Most people want red wine with cheese. I think sweet wine is a great accompaniment with cheese. Or, as the French do, an aperitif, really chilled down, either on its own or with fragois or pâté as the aperitif. It goes beautifully well because of the richness of the food is balanced with the sweetness and the acidity to cleanse the palate. So at £20 for a full bottle, that's a steal. Most of the sweet wines you'll see on the market are that sort of price for a half bottle. So moving on to one of the ports, Krone, 1996 Cajita, and a Cajita is a vintage tawny port. So they've spent all their time in barrel, thrown the colour, thrown the sediment, and I find them a little bit subtler. So the 96 has spent 21 years in a barrel. So it's very pale tawny, and then it's more dried fruits, almonds, figs, sort of that caramelised peel touch, bit of demerara sugar, maybe even a hint of treacle, rather than the full-on, in-your-face, really sweet black cuntiness that you get from a standard vintage port, which has only spent 2 years in the barrel and matures in the bottle and throws the sediment. This, because of all that oxidisation, you can open it, put the cork back in, 6 months later, if it lasts that long, it's still as good as the day that you opened it. So £27, it is just sublime, perfect accompaniment with your Christmas pudding, or your sticky toffee pudding, or your banoffee pie. I know it's not a Christmas dish, but some people will have it. Or with your cheese. It goes really ideal on cheese or on its own. So the last item I've got here is the Salizar Amaretto. Now most people only know Di Serono. Not to slag it off too much, but Di Serono is made from apricot kernels flavoured with almonds. And it's really sickly sweet. This is 100% almonds. And at £24.50 it's a bit more expensive, but once tasted, never forgotten. It's like concentrated Battenberg cake. And just to finish the meal off, something like that is just sublime. And I'm not a great lover of liqueurs, but this I've drunk on many occasions.
Okay, finally we've reached the end of the night. Slippers on, dressing gown on, maybe cigars out. So what would you recommend, just something to finish off the
A little
night?
nightcap, something like a top quality cognac. This is the Maxim Trijon VSOP. Very small artisanal firm, Maxim Trijon. They maybe only make between 10 and 20,000 bottles a year, not the 30 million like Hennessy. So the quality and the age of the cognacs is much better. I did a cognac tasting 18 months ago where I put this up against Remy VSOP. It knocked the spots off it, and at about the same sort of price you're getting cognacs that just are sublime, that rich sort of vanilla sweetness with a really long lasting finish on it, and at 36 is just a snip.